Hi, welcome back to another video. This is my first video of 2025, in fact, after spending the last 2 weeks enjoying a nice long break off work over the Christmas and New Year period. I hope that everyone had a great Christmas, a great New Year, and that, like me, you're looking forward to what could be a very exciting first few months of 2025 for us sim racers, especially us sim racers who race in VR. I say that because in the next week or two, we should all be getting our hands on the latest release from Reqiurements, Assetto Corsa Evo, which should, hopefully, set a new benchmark for visual fidelity when it comes to a AAA sim racing game for 2025. But before the community gets all consumed with all things ACE, I wanted to take a moment to take a look back at the good, the bad, the ugly, all things Le Mans Ultimate, because I realized over the last week that I have now racked up over 100 races and 300 game hours in Le Mans Ultimate, all since September 24th when VR racing in Le Mans Ultimate became a reality. But rather than just focus on my opinion and the things that I found, the things I like, the things that still I would like to see a little improvement on, I thought I'd also encompass some of the feedback from across the community. That feedback comes from the Le Mans Ultimate dedicated community on Steam, the Studio 397 forum, also the Le Mans Ultimate forum, the Le Mans Ultimate subreddit, and some commentary, some opinion that has also been shared on the Le Mans Ultimate Discord. And as always, I would like you to comment in the comment section and give me your feedback as well, what you think has been great for Le Mans Ultimate, where you think Le Mans Ultimate has gone wrong, and what you'd like to see improved in 2025. As I go through the video, it's highly likely that I'll repeat myself, especially when it comes to what I love about Le Mans Ultimate. But off the top, what I love the most is the visuals, and it's here where I think I owe Le Mans Ultimate a couple of apologies. The visuals in Le Mans Ultimate are now by far my favourite visuals in VR when it comes to sim racing titles. And this is where apology number one comes in, because when Le Mans Ultimate first released, before we could play it in VR, I loaded it up in 2D. I didn't get to max out all of the graphics. I didn't have an RTX 4090, I had a 3080. And at the time, I remember saying to my friends and also commenting in the video review I did, that I wasn't overly impressed with the visuals to the same extent that the community had been hyped up. I just didn't see what was so special about it. In fact, I commented numerous times that I thought the colour palette looked a little bit washed out. Whereas now, whether it's in-game when I'm in VR and I'm driving along, or afterwards when I'm watching back a replay or a video that I've done, I can spend ages just staring at the quality of the visuals that we're presented with, whether it's the shafts of light, whether it's the shadows, whether it's the reflections, whether it's just that same color palette that I thought was a little bit washed out. The clarity of detail, the definition, the sharpness. I look at it and quite frequently I just think this just looks real. This looks like reality. And it's not an opinion that I'm alone in. As I was racing at Interlagos over the Christmas period, someone joined my stream and said, "Oh, when I first joined your stream, I thought I was watching actual real life race footage." And that blew my mind. Although it made me pause for a moment whilst racing to think, I get it, I completely agree. There are moments when I think the car in front of me on track just looks real. Not only do they look real, but they sound real too. And that's where the second apology comes in, because again, when the game first released and I again was playing it in 2D, I too was not that impressed with the audio. And when I say not impressed, I mean to the level that everybody else was, with all of the hype, all of the teasers. Everyone was saying, "Oh my god, it sounds just like watching a WEC broadcast." And at the time, I just didn't hear it. However, 101 races later, 300 hours later, I get it. Again, I apologize Le Mans Ultimate, I apologize Studio 397. They have done an amazing, an outstanding, a supreme job of capturing the audio in Le Mans Ultimate. And then the third thing that I absolutely love, again, I've said it over and over, it's the driving experience. The physics in Le Mans Ultimate are just, oh, they're just delicious. So much so that over the last week, I truly believe that I improved in my racing because of Le Mans Ultimate. There are a couple of places on the Imola circuit and on the Bahrain circuit that I have never been able to master because I don't feel confident in other sims in the feedback I'm getting from the car. And I don't mean the force feedback, I mean the car's behavior is what I should say, the car's behavior on track and how it's translating, how it's communicating to me what it's doing, whether it's rotating, whether there's oversteer, understeer. Normally I just don't feel comfortable when the car starts rotating because I just don't like the way that it feels and gives me that sensation in other sims. However, in Le Mans Ultimate, it's so consistent, it's so good that the confidence I have in the car is just at levels I've never experienced before. When you then throw in the advantage that we have when racing in VR of being able to look in the direction that we want the car to travel in, looking through the apex, looking at our track out point, no longer being concerned that I can't understand what the car's going to do, I can't get that feedback from the car, I don't have confidence in it rotating unless I stare at it. I can now look comfortably and confidently through the apex and get on the power earlier. I found time at Imola, I found time at Bahrain, but it was an epiphany moment that I had going through Acqua Minerale of, oh, I've been taking this section of the track wrong for 30 years of sim racing. And I put it down to Le Mans Ultimate and how brilliant the game is that I finally had that epiphany over the Christmas period. And that's what I love. That's what I think is the good. What is currently still the bad, and it's driving me mad, is the penalties that we're all picking up off the start. And this is in no short all down to the way that the pace lap process is implemented in Le Mans Ultimate. Because we can't see the locator that's on the track in front of us once we get within X feet or meters of the car in front, it means that we're at the mercy of the car in front to know whether or not we're lined up correctly, whether we're at the right distance to the car in front of us, whether or not we're even traveling at the correct pace speed. And because of that, all it takes is one car further up the grid to get off the line a fraction of a second too late, or to decide that they want to warm their tires and drive slightly erratically, for everybody behind to be all of a sudden playing Russian roulette with, am I going to get a drive-through penalty? But all of the effort that you put into qualifying, you prepare yourself for a really good race, it's soul destroying to know that in the first 3 laps you have a drive-through penalty, and it's not because of something you did, it's because something you have no control over. So I really hope that Studio 397 rethink and revisit their approach to implementing it. I mean, we've all seen the various different approaches that have been taken in other sims, and they all work, right? So sometimes you just have to accept that that works. Why reinvent the wheel? So please, Studio 397, please do something, because at the start of a race, you really don't want to see that 3, 6, 9, 12 sometimes cars got a drive-through penalty just because a car further up the grid caused a chain reaction that no one else had any control over. So please, 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 for 2025, let's fix that. The other thing that's in the bad bucket is the bugs. They came with early access, and I know they're going to be there for some time, but I'm hoping that Studio 397 can resolve them as soon as possible, because they too present an annoying itch when it comes to trying to just get into the game and enjoy a few hours of seamless, effortless, painless driving. What I would throw into the ugly bucket is the uncertainty over the future of Le Mans Ultimate. For those of us that love it, for those of us that are having some of the best racing that we've had in absolute ages, we'll want to see the title survive. We also want to see the rest of the features that we know will be coming to the game being released. We want to see the game developed. We want to see the rest of the LMGT3s. We want to see Le Mans Ultimate survive. So not knowing what is in store for Motorsport Games, Studio 397, is a level of uncertainty that we could all do without. So fingers crossed we get to lance that ugly boil, and Studio 397 and Motorsports Games find a way to resolve the financial uncertainty that is hanging above their heads. And there's one more thing that I should add into the good, what I think has been absolutely brilliant for Le Mans Ultimate. That has been the introduction of the Championship Series, the online series through Race Control, because it's there in the Fixed Series and the Trophy Series that I've had some of the most fun over the Christmas period, where I'm starting to see regular names of other drivers that I'm competing with time after time on track. And it's nice. Sim racing is a small community. It's a niche community when it comes to gaming, let alone when it comes to esports. So you start to build up friendly rivalries the more you see the same names, and it's great to see the same people on track week in, week out. Of course, those rivalries also mean that you're nefariously going to build up some relationships with people where you're the antagonist or they're the antagonist, because people do some interesting things in sim racing, right? Especially when you consider it's GT3s and the aggression level, the adrenaline level is through the roof. But I still think that that level of competitiveness, that level of interest is good for Le Mans Ultimate. It is, though, still a, I don't know if I put it into the bad or ugly bucket, but it is still noticeable that the participation levels in Le Mans Ultimate still are quite low. So it'd be really good to see if those numbers can get a nice little bump through Q1 2025 and see if they can survive the release of Assetto Corsa Evo, any improvements that iRacing bring to their platform, and also to see if they can hold on to the racers who left ACC and went to iRacing and keep them in the Le Mans Ultimate community. Anyway, those are my views after 100 races, after 300 hours, the things that I absolutely love about Le Mans Ultimate, the things that, as I said, they're a bit of an annoyance at the moment, and the things that I'd like to see improved through 2025. What are your thoughts? Add them into the comments. As you're doing that, I'm going to go through some of the feedback that has been shared online from the various communities about what they love, what they dislike, and what they'd like to see changed in Le Mans Ultimate in the near future. When it comes to praise for Le Mans Ultimate, some of the top 10 things that have been commented across the various communities is, again, the realistic physics. So many players have praised the game for its highly realistic physics, making that driving experience feel so incredible, so authentic. And again, it's the sound design. The sound design has been highlighted as one of the best aspects, with realistic engine noises and environmental sounds. The force feedback has also had some acclaim, with the system receiving so much positive feedback for providing a really highly immersive experience. It is a bit of a Marmite moment though, because there are some people who also put that into the bad dislike column because they feel that the force feedback in Le Mans Ultimate is perhaps disconnected for them. We all know that force feedback is something that is quite individual. It depends on the wheelbase that you have, it depends on the simulator that you're driving. They all require some tweaks, and it may well be that yes, there is an element of force feedback tweaking that Le Mans Ultimate need to introduce, because we all know that the force feedback in R Factor 2 was amazing, didn't need changing, but it may also be that members of the community just haven't yet found their baseline. The graphics, again, the graphics factored and featured frequently as one of the things that people loved and commended about the game, especially that high quality attention to detail. And then also there's that element of it being focused on sim racing, with people really appreciating the game's focus on the sim racing, providing a more specialized and high quality experience compared to other racing games that perhaps try to cater to more of an entertainment audience. The community support has also received quite a lot of praise. Studio 397 have been extremely interactive. Their mods are very active in the Discord channel, in the Le Mans Ultimate community forums, and it's not gone unnoticed that that active community support and regular updates to address issues is letting us know what they are doing to improve the game, and they are being receptive to the feedback about the features people would like to see introduced, some having been implemented already, and perhaps some of the implementation approaches that they've taken to the game being changed. And it's not something that we should take for granted. Developers aren't usually as forthcoming when it comes to interacting with communities, and they most definitely aren't as receptive as Studio 397 are being to, and this is what we think is wrong with your game. Another area of the game that has received a lot of positive feedback has been the vehicle characteristics, and I 100% concur with this. Each vehicle in the game has unique characteristics. They all feel and drive differently. They have different performance personalities, and that allows players to feel and understand the differences between the cars, allowing them to pick the mark that they would prefer to race on a regular basis, and especially when it comes to those online championships, the car that they feel will serve them the best across the course of a season. Learning curve in Le Mans Ultimate has also come in for some considerable praise, with the game being noted for its excellent learning curve that helps players improve their skills and understand the nuances of sim racing. And again, as I said earlier in the video, I've been sim racing for 3 decades, and it was only in the last 2 weeks that intuitively I had a couple of epiphanies, because Le Mans Ultimate allowed me to understand what the car was doing through certain sections of the track, but also allowed me to have the mental bandwidth to actually understand what I was doing and what I shouldn't be doing. It comes as no surprise then that Coach David Perel, has noted that he now uses Le Mans Ultimate as his sim racing platform when it comes to practicing in season and preparing for his races, because again, no title is perfect, but Le Mans Ultimate is such a good simulation that it provides that ability to use it as a learning tool, as a training tool, and that is what we do this for, right? To improve. We're all searching for that improved performance. We all want to win. We all want to feel that we're getting somewhere, right? And Le Mans Ultimate allows us to do that, because the way that the game has been implemented is so good that the performance that we get is so consistent that when we make a change, we can see the results. So yeah, I completely understand why that has come in for praise from people. The next one is going to be quite divisive, because again, I think it's a Marmite moment. But track variety has also come in for praise, because the inclusion of tracks such as Fuji, Bahrain and Portimao have been well received. But I'm quite sure that you're not going to be surprised to see that track variety also features in the not so good, because with the limited tracks available, because they're the tracks that are actually being raced in WEC, people who are used to a smorgasbord of tracks from other titles feel that the selection is limited and that perhaps they're going to get bored quite quickly. Whereas for those that see it as a positive, the fact that they're the tracks that the series is actually racing, and they're the tracks that they get to race regularly over and over, it gives them an opportunity to continually improve, especially if they're people who don't have hundreds of hours per month to spend on their hobby. If they can only snatch an hour here, an hour there, having fewer tracks to race actually makes it easier for them to maintain their level of competitiveness or to get up to speed with everyone else. Otherwise, they'd forever face that unending challenge of new track each week, and they'll never be able to keep up with the people who get to spend 8 hours a day racing when they're out working 8 hours instead. The final thing, which is a bit of a holistic positive that people have said about the game, is the future potential. Players are excited about the game's future. They're including the upcoming DLCs, the fact that we now have official VR support and it can still be iterated upon, the possibility that in future we might get an historic Le Mans DLC pack gets people excited. And again, that's just speculation, but Studio 397 will have to do something to bring new players to the game. So it's incumbent upon them to see how they maximize that World Endurance Championship license that they have. And we can dream, right? We're sim racers. We love to dream. Now, that's the rose-colored glasses. We're complete ambassadors, apostles for Le Mans Ultimate Camp's view on the sim today. For those who are a little bit more in the, we have some complaints, Studio 397. We're not as happy as that lot over there. The thing that comes out the most is that early access and the issues that came with it. There are many players who just expressed frustration with the game being released in early access with several bugs and issues. That includes the technical problems where we've had stuttering, laggy menu screens, and high GPU load. The lack of modding is also something that some in the community just can't let go. Due to the game being officially licensed and modding not being possible, it has disappointed some players who are used to the wealth of available mods and the opportunity to race in different categories and different eras that they have in perhaps rFactor 2 and in Automobilista 2 and in Assetto Corsa. And when you consider that a number of the Le Mans Ultimate racers are possibly those who've come across from rFactor 2, it's understandable that they're finding it a little bit challenging to accept that all they're going to have to play with is the officially licensed WEC cars wet tracks, wet series, rather than being able to just dip in and just race what they want when they want. And again, we mentioned it as one of the things that people love about Le Mans Ultimate, but it also features as one of the things that people find frustrating, and it's that inconsistent force feedback. So some players have reported significant dissatisfaction with the force feedback, especially for certain cars like the Le Mans GT3s. But that's possibly symptomatic of the challenges that we face as PC gamers, with the fact that we have completely different wheelbases out there. They all have their own proprietary software, they've got their own drivers, they've got their own configurations, and then as individuals we all have our own preferences for how we want the force feedback to feel. So we're never going to get to a point where everybody is universally happy. However, there are enough people who have a consensus and can agree on the fact that in certain scenarios, the force feedback for them just is lacking. So hopefully Studio 397 over the coming weeks and months of 2025 can find a way to develop the force feedback to get it back to something that we had with rFactor 2, where that was just universally lauded. It was highly unlikely that you'd find anybody that had an issue with rFactor 2. However, I say hardly, because there will still be some. I know I was one at one point where for certain cars at certain tracks there would be that lack of feedback right at the top of the wheel, and I never ever understood whether that was an rFactor 2 thing, that was an individual mod thing, whether that was my wheelbase, who knows. So yeah, hardly anybody, because we will never get 100% of the community happy with the force feedback at any point in time in future. Another complaint that we had was limited replay functionality, with the replay function being limited and not working as well as it does in other racing games. There have been improvements. We now can actually see the replay in VR, we can actually interact with it in VR, and we couldn't before, we had a black screen. So I'm quite sure again that Studio 397 will continue to improve on that. And when I say I'm quite sure, I mean I'm optimistic and hopeful, because they've been responding to feedback thus far and have been introducing improvements to the game. So hopefully the more people that continue to request it as an improvement, as a feature they'd like to see, perhaps then we'll see it coming in 2025, Q2, Q3 would be nice, but hopefully at some point we'll see improved replay. Graphics have also been an issue for people. So for us that live in VR land, it has been finding a graphics setting that works so that the game performs and also looks visually pleasing. For people that are racing in 2D, it's less of a challenge, I believe, because of course they're not having to try and tweak it to work with VR as well. However, the improvements that came with the September 24th update that allowed us to have MSAA, and the continued improvements with the December update as well that brought some optimization to the game, I'm hopeful that we'll see continued progress in this area, because as it is right now graphically, Le Mans Ultimate is beautiful. It is absolutely delicious. It's eye candy. When it comes to quality of life, complaints that have been levelled across the year included the AI cars, well, it was the absence of AI cars in certain modes earlier in the year in 2024, and that had been a point of contention for so many players. Also the menu navigation, well, it's been described as clunky and unintuitive by some players. And again, hopefully Studio 397 can look at that, because as a quality of life feature, being able to navigate the menus should not be a detractor. It shouldn't put us off wanting to get into the game. And whilst for many the community communication has been great from Studio 397, there have been complaints about poor communication from Studio 397 regarding updates and fixes, because you can't please everybody all the time, and there will be moments where Studio 397, perhaps because of some of the difficulties that they were going through with the motorsports games financial scenario, where they couldn't be as forthcoming, that irked the consumer. So hopefully again we see that financial situation resolved, and we get to a point where more across the board the community interaction is positive and people start to feel more comfortable in the direction of the game. And lastly, performance requirements. We touched on it before, but the game requires a high-end PC to run smoothly, which can be a barrier for some players. It can be a barrier for many players. The continued clamour for optimization. Anyway, those are my views. Those are community views. Do you agree? Let me know in the comments. And as always, a like, a share, a subscription, a comment will be greatly appreciated. I will see you in the next video.